Hi, gang. I just got back from a bike ride, so I'm a little hot and a little warm, although I did take a shower, so I'm all clean. It was so nice to be outside. The sunshine felt so good, and there was a nice breeze. But wait a second. When we left Joseph yesterday, he was in prison for the second time, and now he's being forgotten. Joseph can't go on a walk. Joseph can't go on a bike ride. But let's see what's going to happen to Joseph. The Bible tells us that God meant all of this for good. But we know that because we can read the end of the story. But Joseph doesn't know that. So Joseph has foretold the dreams, or God allowed him to tell the dreams, interpret the dreams of the cupbearer and the baker, and they came true. And the cupbearer went back to the palace, and the Bible tells us that he forgot Joseph, not for 1 year, but for 2 years. That's a long time to be forgotten, especially when he thought he had a ray of hope. Well, after 2 years, Pharaoh has a dream. So this is our third set of dreams. Joseph had dreams, the cupbearer had a dream, the baker had a dream, now Pharaoh had a dream. Not one, but 2 dreams. He dreamed that 7 fat cows came up out of the Nile River. The Nile River went right through the middle of Egypt. And they were fat, and they were shiny and healthy. And then 7 skinny and scrawny cows came up out of the river. And they ate the fat cows all up. And Pharaoh woke up in a shock. And he calmed down, he fell back to sleep. And he dreamed again. And this time a stalk of corn grew up with 7 healthy ears on it. And then another stalk that wasn't healthy with 7 ears. And it ate the healthy ears all up. How weird is that? First, cows are eating cows, and now corn's eating corn. Pharaoh was sorely troubled. The next morning, when he woke up, he called all his wise men together to ask them to tell him what the dreams meant. But none of them could, because they were trying to figure it out themselves, or they were trying to pray to a false god. Joseph knew that he couldn't, but he knew that God could. So whenever he needed help, he prayed and asked God. And that's what we should do. When all this was happening, the cupbearer was there, and he's like, "Oh, Pharaoh, I have failed you, and I have failed a Hebrew slave servant. He was in prison with me. He was servant to the guard of the prison and the captain of the guard. And the baker and I, when we were in prison together, we both had dreams the same night, and he interpreted them for us. And exactly what he said came true. You should send for him." And Pharaoh did just that. He sent for Joseph. But Joseph didn't hurry. Joseph, out of respect for Pharaoh, and he wanted to represent his God, took time to get washed up and cleaned up and put on fresh clothes, and he came before Pharaoh properly. And Pharaoh said, "I have had dreams, and I've heard that you can interpret dreams." Joseph said, "Not I, but God can." He said, "Tell me your dreams." And Pharaoh told him just what happened about the 7 cows, and then the 7 bad cows ate those cows, about the 7 ears of corn, and the 7 bad ears of corn ate those ears of corn. And Joseph prayed in his heart, and he said, "Pharaoh, your 2 dreams are one and the same dream. And this is what God has told me to tell you. God said to tell you that the 7 fat cows and the 7 healthy ears of corn equal 7 years of abundance and plenty, that Egypt will just have great harvest and plenty of extra food. But the 7 bad cows and the 7 bad ears of corn mean that for the next 7 years after that, there will be 7 years of severe famine. And so you should put someone wise in charge of the harvest. And every year, 1/5 of the harvest should be set aside and saved so that when the famine comes, there will be food to eat and Egypt won't die." And Pharaoh thought. You can just imagine Pharaoh putting on his thoughtful face. He thought for a minute. He said, "Who among us is wise enough to do all of this?" He kept thinking. He said, "None of my wise men were able to interpret this dream." He said, "It's obvious the power of God is on your life." For the 3rd time in a land that didn't believe in the true God, Potiphar saw it, the captain of the guard in the prison saw it, and Pharaoh sees it, that God is on Joseph's life and God's blessing him because Joseph has chosen to do right. Joseph is being a pilot, like we talk about on the weekends. He is choosing to do right. And his testimony tells everyone that God is the most important person in his life and God is blessing him. Wow. Wow. So Pharaoh says an amazing thing. Pharaoh says, you're the man. You will be in charge of all of this. You will be in charge of the entire kingdom. Everyone in Egypt will answer to you. You will be in charge of everything, save for me on the throne. So the king says, I'm still king. I still have the final say, but you're the boss. Wow. Joseph had a dream that his brothers would bow down to him. He had a dream that his mother and father and brothers would bow down to him. But then he was sold into slavery. And then he was thrown into prison. Then he was forgotten in prison. And now he's standing before Pharaoh. And at that time, he was the most powerful man in the world. And Pharaoh looks at him and says, you're in charge. So all these things are happening in Joseph's life. We're positioning him to do an amazing thing for God. And next week, we're going to find out just what God had in mind for Joseph. We're going to find out what happened to Joseph's brothers and Joseph's father and his mother. So join me next week for story time. See you this weekend for our weekend experience. Have a great night.